Hello, and welcome to the Pool is Abstract, where we're currently rewatching and dissecting the revived series of Doctor Who episode by episode. My name is Connor, and with me is the joy to my world.
Oh, no. Charlotte.
You didn't like that?
Oh, it was sweet, but cheese.
You love cheese. It's Christmas time.
It is Christmas time.
Christmas time's time for cheese.
Yeah.
How you doing? How was your Christmas?
It was good. How was your Christmas?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
I hope all anyone listening, I hope you also had a good Christmas or a good festive season.
Yeah. So today we're breaking up the usual routine. Obviously, we've been making our way through series 1. Our last episode to go live was episode 6, called Dalek.
Yeah.
Today we're not doing the long game, as you can see from the title and or thumbnail that you've already clicked on. We're covering the 2024 Christmas special, Joy to the World.
Yeah.
With our incumbent 15th Doctor, Mr. Ncuti. Noteworthy for being written by Stephen Moffat. It's not his first Christmas special.
No.
But this is the first first festive special to be written by someone who isn't the current showrunner.
Yeah.
That's kind of noteworthy. That's never really happened before.
I guess he's well experienced, so, and him and Russell seem very close, so I guess he trusts him.
I think Russell started writing it, and then he ran out of time because they've started doing everything so far in advance now. He had to start work on series 2 or season 2, sorry. So far in advance that he basically had to scrap his plans for the Christmas special. So that's why Stephen ended up writing it. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of sort of talking points to go over before we get into the episode. Do you have anything you want to say?
No, nothing in particular.
No? Should we just jump straight into it? This could be a really quick episode.
I don't know.
You've made plenty of notes.
I've made plenty of notes.
Okay, cool. All right, well, we'll try and get into it. The only sort of heads up I will give is obviously, as this is the first time that we are talking about an episode more or less live, obviously I don't have as much reliable sources to fall back on. So I relied on the TARDIS wiki a lot for previous episodes just to give me a help with recapping the episodes and stuff, the plot points. With this one, I had to watch the episode again, and then on my second watch, I was essentially just making notes of what the actual structure of the story was. So, yeah. So if it's a bit more ropey than it is usually, that's because this is me and I don't have any smarter people to actually hold my hand with this one. But
we haven't got the history just yet.
Yeah. But the episode opens, so we have the Queen's Hotel in Manchester in 1940. Looks like we're kind of in the midst of World War II. There's an elderly couple. What do they say? I didn't write this down, but one of them says something like...
The gentleman's looking out the window and he says, he's seen another place being bombed. Yeah. And he's looking out and he said, I knew those people. Yeah,
because he mentions that there are two women living together. I can't help but wonder if that's... I guess probably not because the time zone isn't right, but I initially, first time I watched this on Christmas Day, I thought that might have been a reference to Jenny and Vastra. But then I thought, this isn't Victorian, is it? I mean, I guess it could be them, but yeah, probably not. I think I was just like, hey, those are two lesbians in Doctor Who.
Well,
maybe it's those two women from the bus in Gridlock.
I'm not great on history. I have made notes and tried to have done a little bit of research based on these times. I looked and there's not much I could find based on the Queen's Hotel in Manchester in 1940. I was looking for any significant figures or any significant historical event.
Yeah, being Doctor Who, you'd assume we're at a specific hotel in a specific year. Chances are this is the year that hotel blew up or something.
Well, not just that. I mean, the hotel, which we come to stumble upon, literally says that it's moments in history that you can go and have a vacation to.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, but I guess you could argue, we come to find out that the door isn't open.
Yes.
So maybe it's not ready. Maybe it's not at
the moment hasn't come yet.
The moment hasn't come yet for that significant period of time. Maybe.
Yeah, no, interesting. That's a good point. I do have a question actually about the logistics of how this works, but we'll get to that later. So at this point, the couple, like I say, they're talking, and the doctor walks in. He's got a ham and cheese toastie with a pumpkin latte.
Yeah.
And they're just looking at him like, obviously, who the hell are you? What the hell is a pumpkin latte?
Where have you come from?
Yeah. He looks at them and kind of goes, no, okay, never mind. And he goes back through the door. The man goes to follow him through, and the door's locked all of a sudden. He says, what is it with all these hotels always have a locked door? Then we cut to Italy, 1962, following the Orient Express. And there's a woman sat down in one of the carriages writing a letter. Once again, the doctor pops in. Ham and cheese toastie with a pumpkin latte? Nope, never mind. And goes back through the door. Then it's, Everest?
Everest. Which,
1953.
Yes, which this does have a significant historical thing that I've been able to find. Bear in mind, I rushed this.
Yeah, 1953 is when we climbed to the top the first time, right?
So the gentlemen who are in the tent are I think it was the 8th mountain expedition.
Yes.
To try and reach the summit, and the first confirmed ones to have done it. Yeah.
By all accounts, the first people to make it to the top of Everest.
Yes.
Yes. Once again, the doctor seems to appear from nowhere because there's no door in the tent. You kind of just pulls the zip down. And once again says, how much cheese toasty with a pumpkin latte? And again, they all just kind of look at him. Nope, okay, he disappears. This is when we cut to the Sandringham Hotel in London, 2024. Taxi pulls up, and who pops out? It's Joy, our one-off sort of companion for the episode. She arrives, she speaks to the woman behind the counter and gets a room. She goes upstairs and she gets sort of shown around the room. Here's the bathroom. It's a very awkward social encounter, isn't it? She's trying to, when those kind of people that not friends but people you have to talk to, like a hotel lobby clerk or something, and you try to lighten the mood, make small talk, try and be a bit funny, but your senses of humor don't match up, or they're just tired from a long shift.
Well, she starts off with saying, the lady, which we later know as Anita, asks her it's in single room, and Joey says, is it that obvious? And she's like, I meant the room. Yeah.
But I was saying, when they get into the room, there's that awkward thing where she's like, here's the bathroom. She goes, ooh, en suite. And then she just kind of looks at her like, oh, I can't be bothered for this. Yeah. Joy makes a comment about that door that every hotel seems to have on the side that's locked or doesn't seem to go anywhere. Once the woman that we come to know as Anita leaves, Joy starts talking to a fly. Says something like, I thought I was going to be alone this Christmas, but I guess not. They got company. It's very sad. Then the door opens, and who walks in? It's a Silurian. The Silurian walks in holding a briefcase. He says, the starseed will bloom and the flesh will rise. She kind of, when he walks in, she was kind of opening a drawer and she found a hairdryer. Why is the hairdryer in the chest of drawers?
I mean, that's quite common in hotels.
Is it? I always find it's in a wardrobe or something. You open a wardrobe and it's kind of hanging in there, but it was in the top drawer of the chest of drawers. I thought that was weird.
Do you know what made me laugh? Mainly because of my own brain. It took me, especially because we've recently watched Dalek, it took me back to the scene where Eccleston goes, he's broken hairdryer. So the fact that she picks up a hairdryer, I'm like, and the guy's like, oh.
Yeah, she's picking up the hairdryer. She points it at the Silurian. He kind of freezes
and thinks it's obviously some sort of gun.
Yeah, and then the doctor walks in again. Go on, Charles.
What, the ham and cheese toasty or pumpkin spice latte?
Ham and cheese toasty and a pumpkin latte. And he kind of just gives her the teeth.
And he's like, yes.
Yes, he smiles, and that's it. That's a cold open.
Oh, one little interesting fact.
Yes.
Again, this hasn't been verified, but I'm pretty certain.
Yes.
The Sandringham Hotel in London 2024, that street is Mary Street in Cardiff.
Well, where it was filmed?
St Mary Street, yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
Oh, okay.
again...
Is the Sandringham Hotel a real hotel?
Probably. Well, there's probably many Sandringham hotels, but I don't know whether that particular one is. I'm not sure. But
is it like real and it's in Cardiff, or do you reckon it's real and it's in London?
It's not in Cardiff, I know that. But I saw like the little Pop World logo, and I was like, ooh.
Oh, right, okay.
I was like, look, it's St. Mary Street.
Are you really good at noticing those things? Like, there are some places that are really obvious, like in The Unquiet Dead, when they're quite obviously in the new theatre, or when they're on like St. Mary Street or whatever. But there's a lot of times where I'm like, unless I'm looking for it, I kind of just get immersed into it, and I kind of don't recognise stuff.
Well, I think it's handy because obviously we live in Wales.
Yeah.
And I know Cardiff very well. I think that, do you mean, I look out for that thing anyway, but especially because a lot of the scenes are filmed in Cardiff. I'm like, oh, look.
It's over there.
I know that place. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the cold open. We get our opening titles. Once the episode opens for real, we have our introduction to the Time Hotel. So we're kind of sat in the lobby, and the TARDIS is kind of just parked very slapdash in the lobby.
Well, we start off with like a panning shot of the world, aren't we?
Are we?
Yeah, starts off with like a panning shot of the world, and it's like 4,202.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I missed that this time because I think I was still writing the notes from the cold open. But yeah, I do remember seeing that on Christmas Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like the 43rd century or whatever it's meant to be. 4,200 and something. Yeah. So the TARDIS is parked in the hotel lobby. The Doctor pops out in a dressing gown.
Yeah.
He's got like a newspaper under his arm. He's got like 2 mugs of coffee. He does this big old yawn. Little thing, the newspaper he's got under his arm was actually featured on this month's issue of Doctor Who magazine. So the newspaper title, the newspaper's called The Timey Wimey, which I find just fun. But there are 2 references on there.
I did hear of one of these references, but I'm interested in the other one.
So they're both from the same episode. So they both reference the 11th hour.
One to do with like, isn't it like the pond with no ducks?
Yeah, so one is the empty duck pond, which I don't know how much you remember the 11th hour, but there's that thing where Matt Smith says, isn't it weird that there's a duck pond with no ducks?
Yeah.
And it's kind of implied that the ducks were taken by the crack in Amy's wall. And there's also a reference on there for Prisoner Zero as well. So just 2 references to the same episode, Moffat's first episode as showrunner.
I wonder if that's...
in what might be Stephen Moffat's last episode for the show. He's not said as such, but I mean, he has no plans to return for series 2 or season 2. Do you know what I mean? That's not confirmed. He's not said it's going to be his last episode, I don't think, but it very well could be.
Oh, I'd be very sad.
So it'd be kind of interesting to see him kind of bookend his tenure in that way. But yeah, that's just some nice references. I noticed the timey-wimey when he was holding it. And obviously you can't see the whole thing because he's got it tucked under his arm. You can only see like the first couple letters, but I know that was the newspaper that was on the front cover for this month's magazine.
Yeah.
So yeah, just some nice references there. So the Doctor goes over to the like coffee bar and he's filling up his 2 mugs when he notices a man by the front desk. He's asking for a room on the 3rd floor. And I think he catches the Doctor's attention because he's got a briefcase chained to his wrist.
Yeah.
This is when a man who works at the hotel, who we come to know as Trev, pops up and he says to the Doctor something like, I'm sorry, but the refreshments are for guests only. They kind of have this like back and forth where the Doctor's, he's filled the mugs up now and he's walking back towards the TARDIS and Trev's kind of following him and they're having this back and forth. And he says, like, are you with anyone? He says, like, no, I'm on my own. He says, why do you have 2 coffees?
Oh, I wrote this in my notes. I was like, oh.
Yeah, so he gives him the one, doesn't he? He says something like, oh, sorry, I never get used to them leaving. Yeah. And he gives him the coffee. He says you can keep the mug, it's bigger on the inside.
Which, yeah, I did like that. When I first saw him coming out of the TARDIS with the mugs, again, how random my brain is, I thought they were Pantone mugs.
I don't know what that is.
So there's like Pantone colour of the year. This is such a niche thing.
Okay.
But basically, it's like.
Oh, is that the thing where it's always like a really the colours always have really stupid names?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then you have like the colour of the year it generally sets like clothing trends and homes trends and stuff. But usually Pantone do like a mug that literally look like that, and they'll say Pantone and then the colour.
Oh yeah, Pantone is like the website you can go on, isn't it? Where you can find like any colour, right? You can like use like the eyedrop tool and it'll give you like the hex code for like any colour and tell you what it's officially called.
Yeah. So I thought I was like, oh, I was curious to actually check what the. I was like, I'm not going into that much
Yeah, do you think
detail.
they'd have significance? Do you reckon the names of the colours would be like references or something?
Maybe, or maybe they use. Because
Yeah,
I know we
yeah.
had a yellow a couple of years ago, but I know they're very in the Doctor style. It's very 70s style.
Isn't it just like yellow and brown or something?
Yellow and orange, yeah. But his whole style is like orange and brown and yellow and
Very
reds.
kind of autumnal kind of colours, aren't they?
Again, very 70s as well, and style.
Yeah. But yeah, he says you can keep the mug. He says he never gets used to them leaving, which obviously this coming right off the heels of Empire of Death. Ruby's left the TARDIS. To my recollection, the first companion since Martha to have voluntarily left the TARDIS.
Well,
Oh no, Dan left the TARDIS. Never mind, scrap that.
but also,
Forgot about Dan.
I don't know whether Ruby. She did leave, but I don't know whether it was like voluntary. It wasn't like Dan or Martha, was it? Dan and Martha left, whereas Ruby was kind of like she wanted to leave, but she also wanted to stay. She was like gently but also forcefully nudged.
I don't know. I don't know if she was. I think she left, but she was sad because she knows the Doctor doesn't just stick around.
Well, it's the thing. You could tell, bless him. Like obviously, this isn't in this episode, but during that scene, you see him obviously turn away, and he's like, I'll see you at some point, and then turn his back to her. So it's kind of like a cold goodbye, but from his like brain, it's to make sure that she actually does go.
Yeah, he's got her best intentions.
A heart,
yeah. But then he goes back inside the TARDIS. He puts the mug down. He puts his coat on. He grabs the Sonic, and then he realizes, I don't actually know why I've done this. I must have seen something, and he's subconsciously getting into like action mode, which I quite like.
I do. I like his little smirk, and he's like, "What have I seen?"
It's very kind of Sherlock, isn't it?
Yeah,
in the
it
sense
is.
of like he's noticed something in his like mind's eye, and he's like, what did I see?
I mean, Moffat.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Doctor comes back out. He bumps into Trev again.
Yes.
He introduces himself with his psychic paper as Special Agent Clint Rock.
I know. Did Clint Rock as well?
From head office. He says, this goes all the way to the top. Look, I've even got my own toilet. And he kind of like opens the TARDIS door. Trev goes to look in and he just like slams it shut again, which I quite like as an interaction. And he kind of takes Trev under his wing as this almost like, not companion, like an accomplice. Or like his Watson. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah. Literally in the same way, he's just kind of swept this person up, and he's just like, "Yeah, I'll go along with you." Okay.
Yeah. He kind of just sweeps him. He kind of takes him under his employment, if you like, not financial, but whatever. And obviously, he's technically lied to him by saying he's from head office or whatever. But you can tell that he's made an impression on him already, and he just really wants to impress the Doctor, and he wants to do a good job. So they kind of have this moment where he's like, "Look at that man, the man with the briefcase. Have you noticed anything kind of odd about him?" And he's like, "No, not really." And he says something like, "Well, look, he's not looking up. If you look up, look at that sight. It's gorgeous. Anyone would look up at that." But he's not moved his eyes. He's just kind of like standing there.
Yeah.
Doesn't he say like, "Or walk like there's nothing dangerous going on"? He's like, "Nothing dangerous is going on." He says, "Why aren't you walking like it then?" He's like, "I haven't nailed this walk yet."
Yeah. He's like, "I haven't nailed the not knowing that something is dangerous isn't going on." Like something like that. I can't remember the wording. But I also like the thing of he says the guy's not looking up, and Trev's like, "We're not looking up either." He's like, "Yes, but we're on a special mission." So what mission is he on? And Trev's like, "Yes."
These two immediately have like a really fun dynamic.
I really like it, even though he does like put a little dig at Trev. I don't know whether, well, maybe it isn't a dig, but obviously the Doctor starts asking Trev about questions about the hotel.
Yes.
It says, a time hotel.
Yeah, kind of asking how it works.
Yeah, and Trev's like, well, I would have thought you would have known all this coming from head office. And he says, being on this, I'd like to clear my mind.
Yeah, I like to go in with a completely fresh mind.
Yeah, I'd like to clear my mind. And Trev goes, should I clear my mind? He's like, I don't think that's really necessary. I was like, ouch.
Yeah, I like that though. I think that's quite like, because he doesn't. I don't
He's
know.
not being mean.
It doesn't
but it's
come
still
across. It doesn't come across as like condescending to me.
No.
It's I don't know. It's a fun little interaction. These two have really good chemistry.
I really like that. I do. I
can't remember his name, but the guy that plays Trev, I think he does a lot of work with Big Finish. So he does a lot of voices and like additional voices in their stories.
I generally like. I've seen him in a couple of things. He was in Plebs.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was like one of the main. Well, there's obviously the three main characters in Plebs.
Oh, he's one of them, is he?
Yeah. And I just in the stuff I've seen him in, I just generally really like him.
The only thing I remember about Plebs is that one guy's got a bowl cut. That's my entire thing. It's like, you say Plebs, I picture that guy with the bowl cut, and that's all I think of.
But yeah.
Yeah. So the person behind the bar that the briefcase man was talking to says like, the room's not available yet, but please take a seat in the bar. He says like, thank you, and he goes over. This is when the doctor's kind of, it's like he's asking Trev, but he's also explaining to himself how the time hotel works.
Yeah.
And he says that, okay, so there are doors set up for different windows in time, so you can kind of have a getaway to whatever period you're fancying, essentially. It's kind of a cool idea.
I think it's a really cool idea.
I do question the logistics. So this is what I was talking about when we were talking about in World War II. Like, sometimes you have to wait for the right moment. And it's like, say you wanted that moment and you go through the door, how do you make sure that your room is available and isn't occupied by someone else? Someone actually from that time, I mean.
Maybe you don't. Maybe you
just
don't.
Just got to take it as it comes.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have.
Because I originally assumed, because she acted kind of strange, that first time I watched this, I thought Anita worked for the Time Hotel.
I thought so too.
But it comes across later that she doesn't really.
No.
So, I don't know.
Maybe they. I know this is going to be. This is going to be so like. What's the word? Just creating information to fill any questions.
Yeah.
Maybe the Time Hotel go back in time and book the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
So the room isn't occupied. Now, it'll be difficult. My question would have been is, how do you book a room in a tent? It's a tent. or do you just go through the door?
When the expedition leave, do they leave the tent?
Well, I would assume they would have taken it with them.
I don't know.
I've never walked up Everest. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I would have lackluster research once again, letting the team down. Yeah, but when the doctor's kind of essentially working out how this time hotel works, there's a couple of references in here that I really liked.
Yes, I like the one with saying that obviously going back in time to historical moments, and I liked it when he says, "No wonder there was no room in the inn."
Yes.
And I was like, I see what you did there.
Yeah, I was thinking more references to other time travel stories. One thing I noticed was the bar is called De Tamble's Bar, which I'm assuming you've not read The Time Traveler's Wife, but the protagonist of that story is called Henry De Tamble, so that's kind of just fun. Also, when he's looking at all the people in the hotel and they're all dressed in costumes from different like periods, and he looks over and he realizes they've all bought their clothes from a costume shop.
Yeah.
And the costume shop was called Mr. Ben's Any Era Clothes. Do you know Mr. Ben?
No.
Mr. Ben is a character from like a series of children's books from like the 60s, 70s, I think. And the ongoing story was that every story he would go to this costume shop and he would try on an outfit, and then he would go through a magic door in the back of the shop and he would take him to the time appropriate for the costume he had.
Oh, I like that. That's so cute.
So Mr. Ben's Any Era Clothes is like a nice reference to that.
And kind of a reference to what this is as well.
But something else that I noticed as well is when you actually no, I'm going to save this for the end. I'll save this for the end, but this will come up again later. But this is the scene where the Doctor goes to like the main reception desk and he asks for the room service menu, and the woman brings it over. She says like tap the diamonds or whatever to pay.
Yeah.
So he orders the ham and cheese toasty with a pumpkin latte. This is when the Doctor's, again, he's still kind of rambling on about how the way this thing works at the time. He says, oh, that's what that extra room in every hotel, extra door, sorry, in every hotel room is for, the one that's always locked. It's the door to the Time Hotel, which is kind of nice. It's that thing the Moffat does really well. You know, like with the Weeping Angels, where it's that thing of like, oh, any statue could be an angel. It's that thing of every time you go to a hotel now, you're going to look at that door and you'll be like, oh, it's the Time Hotel door.
Yeah, and it's that's what I love, the fact that he pulls stuff from just normal life.
Yeah. That
generally everybody's noticed, but you're just like, oh, it's just...
And it makes a refreshing change that he's not using it to try and scare you. Because that's what he usually does. It's normally like, this thing that everyone knows, I'm going to make it spooky.
Yeah.
This time he's kind of made it a bit whimsical.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
I like that.
Yeah, he orders that ham and cheese toasty with a pumpkin latte, and within like a second of ordering it, the woman rocks up with the tray and she has it. And he doesn't say anything, but he's kind of like, bloody hell, that was quick. And Trev says the kitchens are like 30 minutes in the future.
Yeah.
There's that kind of throwaway line about it's still microwave though.
Yeah.
He says, I can't expect miracles. Which I like.
Fair.
Yeah. So again, the Doctor kind of establishes Trev as his man on the inside. He says he's got like a radio implanted like in his head, so they can communicate wherever. So the Doctor goes to he picks up the food that he's ordered, and he's going to pretend to be room service, and he's essentially going to go through all those time windows to try and he wants to follow the man with the briefcase. It's a bit convoluted, but he wants to get to the room first. So he's going through to try and find the room. And that's when we essentially cut to the bit in the cold open where he's just popping through all the windows.
Yeah.
I don't really know how this plan is supposed to work. I don't know how he's going to find the right room when he gets there. Is he just looking for an empty room?
I don't know.
I don't know how this plan is supposed to work.
I guess he's just kind of looking for a vibe, maybe.
Yeah, maybe you'll know it when he sees that, don't you?
Yeah, because I guess I'm assuming at this point he assumes that it's some sort of like transaction.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So, like, someone's got a suitcase and he's there on a business and he's going to pass it over to someone. Maybe he's opening to open a door to have someone on the other side waiting for the person with a briefcase.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. This is when we cut to the briefcase man at the bar. He goes up to the barman and he pops the briefcase on top of the bar, and he asks if the guy can keep it safe by keeping it back there. The guy kind of goes, okay, and he reaches out to grab it, and the handcuffs kind of leap off of the man's wrist and jump onto the barman now. And then it's almost as if something awakens in the guy who originally had the case. It's like he was like brainwashed maybe during that stage, and he falls back and he's like, oh no, what's going to happen now? And the way he was talking, very monotone, is now how the barman is speaking. So it's as if there's like some kind of possession happening, whoever's got the briefcase.
And the eyes as well. They
kind of flicker.
It's kind of like
they flicker whites.
It's like a blink. So you know how cats have like extra eyelids?
Yeah.
It's like that, except it's kind of like I don't know, what would you call that? Like some sort of reptile? Yeah. With like the sideways blink, not the vertical blink, not the horizontal blink.
Yeah. I know what you mean, yeah. So this is when Trev is standing on guard waiting, as he told the Doctor he would. He said to the Doctor, I'm not going to let you down. And the barman sticks his head round, who's obviously we now know is possessed, and asks Trev to come in and help him. He says someone's just left this briefcase, and gives him the case, and then the handcuff jumps onto him. And then the original man who was cowering by the chair, we see just kind of disintegrate. And now Trev has the briefcase, and he says something like, oh no, I was on a mission. And I'm like, oh, it's really sad.
I know, and he watches, because it happens to him, and he's like, oh, this isn't good. And then the other guy disintegrates, the barman.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh. It's like, oh, Trev.
One thing I will give this episode is it does a great job of making me care for these side characters in very little time.
I agree.
Because I know we talked about this before with... which episode was it? I I think it was The Unquiet Dead, when we said that, well, I said that I care more about the side characters of like Gwyneth and Mr. Sneed than I do for like Chibnall's companions. And I don't know how Mark Gatiss managed to do that in an episode, what Chibnall couldn't do in like multiple series, but Moffat's done it here as well. I care way more about Anita, about Joy, about Trev than I do about half of the random characters. Series 11 through 13.
I just think, honestly, I mean, I love Moffat anyway, but I think his ability to evoke emotion is amazing. Whether that's like love or fear or anything, like he really knows how to use emotions and how to play with them.
I think it's like
really
Anita. I think is a really well written character. I don't know if I'd say the same for Trev. I don't think he's badly written, but I think Trev's thing is that the actor who plays him just comes across very likable.
Yeah,
he's very nice and likable immediately. He's got a very kind of approachable demeanor. But I will also say Murray went very hard on this episode. The music, particularly in the ending,
so good,
is very good in this episode.
And well, I don't know whether anyone else who's listening watched or listened to BBC Proms Doctor Who.
It was good.
It was very good and would recommend. But they played the song in Proms, or the music from this episode.
No, they didn't play the music from the end of this episode. They played 15's theme, which is playing towards around now. When the Doctor's kind of romping around, they're playing 15's theme.
I thought they played. I'm almost certain they thought they played Joy to the World. I'm almost certain that's what.
Or maybe they did.
She said.
But anyway, the Doctor is kind of, like I say, he's kind of reverted back to where he was in the cold open, where he's popping through all the doors. He's just come back from the Everest one.
Yeah.
And he's sonicking the door to like lock it. And this is when the Trev, obviously, who now has the briefcase, goes to the front lobby where there's a Silurian behind the table who is the manager.
Yeah.
And we don't actually see it happen with them, but it's implied that they've swapped again. So whilst the Doctor is sonicking this door to break the link, he sees the Silurian now walk up to another door with the briefcase, and he walks into a room. The Doctor follows him in, and this is when we get the bit from the cold open with the hotel room that Joy is in.
Yeah.
So he walks in, sees the Silurian's now like, ooh, and Joy's there pointing a hairdryer at him.
Yeah. Let's say one thing I did really like about Trev is the fact that obviously we haven't seen much of the previous case holders, like personalities or anything, but you can assume that generally they're like controlled quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I think you see with Trev that he's a little bit more in control than they were.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though he's being forced to do stuff, there's a reluctancy to do it. Whereas the other ones maybe not so much.
Yeah, because everyone else seems to be like brainwashed, don't they? Where they keep saying that phrase about the starseed will grow or whatever and the flesh will rise, whatever it was. And yeah, it's kind of as if they're being like hypnotized, where with Trev, it's like he's being forced to physically do something, but he's still himself.
Yeah, it's like he's still fighting because he wants to.
Yeah, because this is when he's literally lying down on that seat and he starts to die. And he says like, oh, I went and let him down. And then he disintegrates. And I'm like, it's so sad. Like, I barely know this man. I've seen him for 5 minutes and that really upset me. It's like, oh, Trev, no.
I think that shows, like, obviously later on,
yes,
how strong of a character he was. The fact that he is in like not just like written, but like as a person.
Yes.
The fact that even though he has been hypnotized or controlled of some sort,
he's got like a strong sense of self. He's strong-willed and he can.
Because he's all he's trying to do is not let Clint Rock down.
Yes. Oh, Clint Rock. Oh my! I need that name tag. I want a T-shirt with Clint Rock on it.
Do you want to feel even sadder?
What?
He died wanting to help Clint Rock, and he didn't even know that Clint Rock's name wasn't Clint Rock.
Oh,
that's so sad.
Yeah, he just wanted to satisfy head office.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Damn.
Yeah. So Joy is pointing the hairdryer at the Silurian. The woman who we come to know as Anita. Pops in with the towels. She doesn't really seem that bothered by the interaction. This is one of the reasons why I thought she worked at the Time Hotel, because when she comes in, she doesn't look at the Silurian and go, oh god. No. She's just kind of like, what's going on here? And just puts the towels down in the bathroom and just like leaves again.
I do love that. She's probably thinking like, you do whatever the hell you want with your room. Like, I'm not gonna ask.
Yeah.
Just
there's this kind of a fun but also kind of dark moment where the doctor's talking to the Silurian and he's asking like what's in the case, and the Silurian says take it and find out, and the doctor's like no, I want to know what I'm getting into before I do that. And Joy's kind of saying that she's asking these questions and the doctor's like, look, not now, I'm busy. And she's like, are you telling me to basically shut up in my own room, like what's going on?
Yeah.
She says like, oh, is this one of those game things I was seeing these hotels? And then the Silurian says the flesh will rise, and she goes, don't be filthy. Which I find really funny. Like that strikes me as a Russell joke, so I'm quite surprised that the Moffat did that.
Yeah.
So at this point, Joy's getting a bit annoyed at just kind of being left out of the conversation, so she says, fine, I'll take the case, and she snatches it off him. The handcuffs latch onto her wrist, and the Silurian kind of comes to, and he lies on the bed. Joy, now possessed, says something along the lines of like, your body's breaking down, you're gonna die soon, type of thing. And there's this really kind of like sweet moment where the doctor knows there's nothing he can really do for him, but he's trying to comfort him. He's trying his best to tell him to hold on. And he says, you're a Silurian, do you know what I mean? You're a proud species. Look how far you've come. Tell me your story. You need to hold on to your story. And you can tell that the Silurian is like, he doesn't say much, but you can tell through his face that he is proud. Upon reflection, he is proud of where he's come. And it's like the doctor has comforted him in his final moments. But he eventually dies. And the doctor cries again.
He is a very weepy doctor, this doctor.
Yeah, the thing is, I like it when he does. It's nice that we have a doctor who's more in touch with his emotions. And it's nice, like, when it happens, it does kind of hit hard. But it's, it is reaching the point where it's starting to not hit as hard because of how often he does.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because there are so many moments where, like, the 10th Doctor could cry, or even Matt Smith or Cabal, any of them could cry, but they don't, and you can see they're upset or they're angry and they're holding it back. When they finally do, it's like heartbreaking. But I think because Ncuti seems to cry more or less every episode, it doesn't hit as hard now, even though he's a great actor and like this is still a sad scene, but he cries again at the end, and it's like it's a bit much at this point.
I feel like it would have been even more poignant at the end if he hadn't cried here.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
the Silurian dies and Joy says something like, well, that was a bit sad, wasn't it?
Well, that's why I find, again, quite interesting. Obviously, compared to Trev, Joy has been taken over quite a bit. Do you mean her attitude has changed a lot? And obviously the doctor notices this. Yes,
it has, but also she does seem to have more control than the Silurian or the barman did.
I think...
Because she doesn't seem as in control as Trev, but there is this moment where the doctor's like talking to her and she says like, are you mansplaining to me or something?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that doesn't seem like something the Silurian would have said. I know Silurian's not a woman, but like...
I do like the fact that he's like, I am the doctor. Of course I am.
He says something like, baby, I'm the doctor. This is mansplain central.
Yeah. Fair.
So this is when the doctor's basically had enough. So he doesn't take the case off her, but he kind of pulls her and the case to the bed and he opens it up and he sees what's inside. And it's revealed to be a star seed, which you should have guessed by now. Because they keep saying the starseed will bloom. I was going to say rise. No, the flesh will rise.
Yeah.
Don't be filthy.
Yeah, the star seed will bloom and the flesh will rise.
So he's kind of like gushing over how like gorgeous this thing is, and then a little timer pops out the briefcase and basically gives a 20-second countdown till the current case holder will die. And at this point, Joy kind of seems to snap out of her hypnosis and she's like, what, close the case, I don't want to die, close the case. And the doctor's just gushing over this star. And then with very little time left, the doctor closes the case and he's like, whoop, yeah, see, plenty of time. And then another thing pops out and says, please enter the 4-digit security code or the case holder will be disintegrated. He's like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
He's like,
do you see that coming?
He's like, do you know the code? She's like, no.
Yeah. So he obviously doesn't know the code. He's only got like 20 seconds or however long it is.
Like that, yeah.
And he's thinking, and he's trying to think, right, what's the plan? Time hotel. I can't use the TARDIS and go back in time because that would cause a paradox. But the way this all works, the time windows are linked and all that stuff. And he says, wait, I should already have the code. So he yells, come in. And then the doctor comes in through the door. There's two of them now. We've had one, yes. What about second doctor?
We've already had second doctor before. This is
We've had
multiple second
Yes.
doctors.
So the second doctor busts in and says 7214. Is there any significance behind 7214?
I asked you that question.
Did you?
No, I ask you that question.
Sorry. I don't think so.
As far as I'm aware. I'm sure if there is, we'll find out.
Yeah. Tell us if there's any significance to 7214. I would love to learn.
Just somebody coming out from the depths, just tiny little comment of a niche.
Yeah, it's going to be like 3 paragraphs of niche, like... What should be like a reference to, like, I don't know, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or something weird like that.
Go on, you beautiful brains, tell us.
So, original Doctor says to second Doctor, how did you get the code? And the second Doctor says, you're going to have to find out the long way round. And this is when he goes on this, like, rant. So the original Doctor, like, starts shouting at the second Doctor and says, see, you're always like this. You always have to be mysterious. This is why you're always alone.
Yeah.
And the second Doctor kind of says, like, complete the loop. That's the only way to get the code. And he just closes the door.
Oh.
And the original Doctor's still kind of, like, ranting at him. And he says something like, you know, haven't you noticed that you haven't got any chairs? No one comes to visit you because you're alone.
And then he stops and he goes...
Yeah, and then he stops and reflects, and he says...
I haven't got any chairs.
I haven't got any chairs.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, this is why nobody likes you. It's like, oh.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
See, this is why I'm a bit... I like this interaction as a whole, but this whole thing of, like, 15 being the Doctor who's had time to process everything and he's now, like, guilt-free, and I'm like... I guess he's guilt-free of the Time War and all that stuff. But then again, you can argue he's been that way since Day of the Doctor. So I'm like... I don't know how I feel about him still kind of hating himself in this way. I like the scene in general, but I just feel like it's kind of antithetical to what 15's character is supposed to be. But then again, I guess if he was just chipper and happy-go-lucky all the time, it doesn't really have much drama. So
No.
I don't know. I don't dislike the scene at all. I'm just...
He makes a good point, because previous Doctors have had chairs in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
But this one does not.
Yeah.
Maybe he's on about just, you know, himself. He seems, even more so than other Doctors, I think, keen to leave.
You think?
And get away from things.
You think more than, like, 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know whether he necessarily classes that as, like, because he's more, not emotionally mature, but more able to process his emotions. But part of me thinks it seems more like blocking them out than actually dealing with them. Because he does leave quite a lot.
Yeah. But at this point, obviously, the Doctor's still in that hotel room. He tries to go back through the door. Obviously, it's been locked. He sonics it open, and when he opens it, instead of going back to the Time Hotel, it's just kind of like a brick wall now behind the door. So he pops downstairs, and he talks to Anita.
Yeah.
And he kind of comes to this realization as he's talking to her that he's essentially going to need to stick around for 1 year to be able to complete the loop. So he asks her, do you have anything around here that needs doing? We get this lovely little montage.
I love this.
The Doctor essentially spending a year at this hotel as... he's kind of a bit of everything, isn't he? Because at first it looks like he's a waiter.
Yeah.
Because he's like bringing food to this family.
Jelly and biscuits.
Jelly and biscuits. And he's, the father of this like family says, like, we haven't ordered yet. And he kind of pulls out the psychic paper and goes, I know what you want.
Yeah. He literally says, like, psychic paper, I have your order. And she's like, I'm on a diet. And he's like, well, that's what it says you want.
Yeah.
Fair.
So he starts off doing that, but then it's almost like he's like a janitor next because he's like mopping the stairs, but he's actually like sonics the mop, and the mop is mopping itself.
2 questions here. One, Anita walks in and sees the mopping the stairs.
Yeah.
She just, I don't know where she's just out of this world. Like,
I know, well, that's what I mean.
she
This is
just looks
another
at it and just
reason.
ignores
This is
it.
another reason why I thought originally she might have been from the Time Hotel.
Yeah, because she just not bothered by it.
No, maybe this is just she's just characterized as just being like, okay, and just accept things.
Also, how does the mop work?
I don't know. Again,
you can't control wood, or the Doctor can't.
Yeah, I mean, even if the Sonic didn't have an issue with not being able to control wood, it's again, how does sonic waves just make this broom lift up by itself and sweep? It's like, it shouldn't work. I seem to remember talking about this in one of our first episodes where I said I liked Russell's first era where the Sonic was only ever used really for interacting with computer terminals. So he would use it to like lock and unlock doors, and he would go up to like a computer panel and like give himself access or something like that. And that's all he used it for. And it was around Matt Smith's era where it started to become a bit of a wand and you could use it for like everything. Because now like the Doctor can scan the environment with it. 13 does it all the time. Do you know what I mean? Comes out the TARDIS, brrr, scans everything and is like, I know where we are. 9 and 10 never did that.
No.
And yeah, this is just one of those things where I know it's not really important. Like the whole sweeping the stairs is there for like a 5-second joke. It's a gag.
Yeah.
It's whatever. But this is one of those Moffatisms that I spoke about, that where I was like, he makes jokes that are okay, but the jokes have implications on the actual canon of the show.
I guess that is true. I still like it though, but
he needs to cut things out. Like a lot of Russell's like jokes are kind of things where you can be like, you can just look over it and it doesn't matter. Where if you take everything to be literal, then yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I just want to note the next little scene in the montage. I love. Anita tells the Doctor that one of the toilets is blocked and gives him like a giant plunger, and he's like, "Is this armed?" I love that.
Yeah. That's what I mean. So like at first he's like a waiter, then he's like a janitor, and now he's like a handyman because he's like fixing a light bulb or something when she gives him the plunger.
And he like upgrades the microwave, and she was like, "It wasn't that big inside first of all," and he's like,
Not supposed to be.
He's like, "Oh, do you want me to change it?" She's like, "No."
Yeah, they have this kind of interaction where she's behind the desk and he's leaning against the wall doing something, and they're talking about Auld Lang Syne, and she asks what it means, and he says it means old friends, times long past, that kind of thing. And he kind of like glances over at the phone, and she says, "Who are you not calling?"
Yeah.
And he says, it's a friend, and it doesn't play a huge part of the episode, but it's just kind of acknowledging that obviously it's not been long since him and Ruby have parted ways, which is kind of nice. We get the bit where he's on a ladder and she pulls up in her car and she says, "You said you fixed my sat nav, but it doesn't take me where I want to go." And he says, "No, but it takes you where you need to go," which is just another TARDIS reference, I guess.
And she's like, "And it's blue now."
She says, "Why is it blue now?" I love the thought that the Doctor's just so like sentimental towards the TARDIS that he's just trying to make everything like a mini TARDIS.
Do you know what? With all the little TARDIS figures on the wall.
Yes.
And she's like, "Oh, what's that?" And he's like, "A reminder of home." And she's like, "Where'd you get them?" And he's like, "I bought them online."
Yeah, I bought them online. There's loads of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, she says, "I love it when the clocks go forwards."
Yeah.
Don't you? And he says, "Yeah, I always have." Which is again just that's a fun little nod to just being like he's used to traveling through time.
Yeah.
But it's like it doesn't really have any implications on anything. So after they have this interaction with the little TARDIS models, Anita goes to leave and the Doctor looks at the chair and he's obviously reminded of his self-roast, I guess.
Yeah, the fact that he has no chairs.
Yeah, and he asks her to take a chair.
I love this scene. It's just the two of them having what they call is it a chair night?
Yeah, so we have this kind of montage within a montage at this point where they clearly do this semi-regularly. So there's one time where they're eating takeout. Looks like they've got like Chinese or something. They're eating noodles.
And what was he? He was talking about.
He was talking about the Weeping Angels.
The Weeping Angels, yeah.
Because he's saying like, genuinely, they don't move when you're looking at them. She's like, no, rubbish.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming that's the thing. Maybe she doesn't react to the mop. Maybe because obviously he's been there a year.
Yes.
He must have told her at some point. And I guess, the fact that he came out of nowhere and there was a lizard man in the room, she's probably like, yeah, all right, sure.
Yeah. So yeah, they're eating Chinese one day, then they're playing Snakes and Ladders the other day,
and Twister.
The doctor's getting really annoyed when he's losing at Snakes and Ladders. They're playing Twister, they play Cluedo. And then Anita says something like, "Oh, this is my favourite night of the week," and they dub it Cheer Night.
Yeah,
which is,
I love that so much. It's so sweet, so wholesome.
It's a lovely little just moment. This. And then it goes to show when you've got a competent writer behind your screenplay, you can do a lot of character development in 5 minutes of screen time.
And that's why I like the fact that it's obviously the way, like the scene where they're eating an Easter egg. So
eating a what?
An Easter egg.
Oh, I thought you just said eating an egg.
Well, no, they eat an egg, but it's an Easter egg. So it's kind of like subtly showing the passing of time.
Yes.
And obviously the way that light changes and how it's getting lighter and getting darker.
Do you remember in Planet of the Dead when the 10th Doctor gets on the bus next to Michelle Ryan, he's eating an Easter egg?
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, finish this off. I'm tempted to keep these teeth." Yeah. So then they have this moment where the Doctor's kind of looking at the obligatory hotel door, and he says, "Are all of these just like cupboards?" And she says, "All of them but one, the honeymoon suite." And we get this really weird interaction.
I love it so much.
The Doctor's like looking in the door, and he's like asking a question who we presume is to Anita, and then when the camera pans back,
she's like eating the food off the side.
she's on the side table in the cuck chair, and she's eating the food.
Not the cuck chair, no.
And this couple are just lying in bed.
Yeah, and he's like, "I hate waiting," and they're like, "So do we."
Yeah, I hate waiting, don't you? And they're both like, "Yes."
We cut to bonfire night.
Just before bonfire night, there's just that kind of payoff for that bit where in the beginning when she says, "Oh, I love it when the clocks go forward."
Yeah.
And then she says, "I don't like it when the clocks go back to you."
No. And he's like, "No, I never really did."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then bonfire night, and he's like, Guy would have loved this."
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like,
"Guy who?"
"Guy Fawkes. It's his night."
Yeah, I love the thought that he's like, he thinks she doesn't know who Guy Fawkes is. When she's just like, "You gave me no context. You just said Guy."
Yeah. And how was I supposed to know that you would know who Guy Fawkes is? Know him personally.
Yeah. So then this is when that kind of montage moment ends, and the Doctor is clearly already you can just tell he's gonna leave.
Yeah.
He leaves a gift for Anita on her desk. She appears, seeing him doing it, and she knows herself he's going. He says, "I've got a complicated life. I'm not used to living in the right order. But I just want to tell you that this year I spent with you was amazing."
I love as well that he's like, my life isn't what it seems. And she's like, "Oh God, you're married."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I'm not married." Just like, "Oh."
Yeah. I tell you what, this thing of him saying "I'm not used to living life in the right order" would hit a lot harder if he hadn't just been 14 and lived out the rest of his incarnation with Donna.
True.
But
I mean, there's because are we counting this season 1 as a full? Because technically it's a full restart, isn't it? Kind of.
No, because everything before it still happened.
Yeah, but as in from the sense of from Ruby Road, I think. Yeah, from Ruby Road we had the Doctor explaining things like the TARDIS and regeneration.
Oh, you mean re-explaining to audiences?
Yeah, so
right.
I'm wondering whether
that's true.
That's there for that reason. I know, because I thought the same thing. Because he has, you know what I mean, throughout his timeline.
I think this is probably the biggest flaw of season 1, right? Which is it's marketed as season 1. I know some people still insist on calling it series 14. Call it whatever you like. It doesn't really matter. But with the Disney deal, the whole thing of calling it season 1, marketing it as a fresh start, a reboot, and then not only is it kind of hard because you don't know where to jump on, because you can't really watch Ruby Road without watching the 60th specials, but the 60th specials don't make much sense without Power of the Doctor, and that doesn't make much sense without the entirety of 13's era. So you kind of end up going down this rabbit hole, and then it's not much of a fresh start for newcomers when you're referencing Sutek and
basically
Susan.
Just watch all of Doctor Who.
From 1963 onwards, or you're a fake fan. And yeah.
Me putting my hand up as fake fan.
Well, me too. I'm literally only making my way through classic series now. Yeah. What were we talking about?
We were talking about Anita and leaving.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The Doctor says he's not
leaving.
used to living life in the right order.
Yeah.
But this year I spent with you has been amazing. But he says, I've got things to do. I've got promises to keep.
He said, he says the little speech of saying that, people around you must tell you all the time how amazing you are. And he says, like, Anita, you made life amazing. I was just like, oh.
Yeah, and he says, you must have people telling you that all the time. She says, no, just the one man.
Oh,
yeah.
Poor Anita.
Lovely little moment. But you can tell she's sad, but she doesn't hold on. No. She tells him, look after yourself and never be alone at Christmas.
Yeah, and never forget me as well.
She says, don't forget me. Remember, you never have to be alone at Christmas. I'm always here. Yeah. Which is just so lovely.
Sweet, yeah.
Because you always get companions being like, no, you can't go. Don't leave me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that she just openly lets him go. A year's a long time.
Yeah.
To spend with what I'm assuming is like her only co-worker.
Well, an only friend by the seam of it. I mean, the two of them seem to spend all the time together.
Yeah. So we should have chair night.
We kind of have chair night with the guys.
Yeah, maybe.
We do, yeah.
We do D&D once a week.
Yeah, so it's kind of chair night.
Yeah.
We sit in a chair and play games. Basically chair night.
What gets nerdier than hosting a Doctor Who podcast? Doing D&D every Wednesday. Yes.
I think that says a lot about us.
Can you tell I was bullied in school?
Oh,
no! So now, with the year having passed, it's Christmas 2025, and the Doctor's waiting at the door ready. He sees... Well, he has to go to a different hotel, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
It's not the Sandringham Hotel, it's the...
Somewhere in New York.
Is it? I thought it was like Exeter Hotel or something.
In New York, yeah.
It's not in New York, is it?
It says New York. Something hotel, New York.
He travels to New York?
It says New York.
Does it?
Yeah.
My God, I missed that twice.
And yes, it's the New York Hotel. It says something.
Are you sure it's not like New York Hotel in Exeter or something?
No, the last thing it says is New York.
Oh my God, if he travels to New York, that's wild.
Well, that was my thought process when it happened, because I was like,
I need to rewatch this again.
Because I thought he's like spent all this year saving his money up to get a flight to New York. Yeah. How does he fly? He has no passport.
Yeah, psychic paper.
Maybe he just goes to uni and it's like, any chance you can give me a passport?
Yeah, give me a lift.
Give me a lift.
Yeah, no, I'll need to watch that again, because damn, if he actually went all the way to New York, that's crazy.
I'm almost certain he
No,
did.
it can't have been New York, because I swear he knows he has to go to that hotel because he sees a flyer for it in the Sandringham Hotel.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a flyer for a New York hotel.
I swear it says
in there.
New York. Where's my phone? Like, carry on.
Okay, you want me to monologue while you look this up?
Well, not necessarily monologuing, but I mean, I can talk to you as I search.
Okay. Charlotte's going to get this up in the background, just
I am.
to give us all peace of mind.
Yeah, because I personally need to know.
But anyway, the Doctor's in the hotel he needs to be at. He's looking at the door, and then he sees through the gaps around the side of the door this white glow. He knows the portal's active, so he goes back through, and he's back in the Time Hotel.
I have a couple of questions here. Well, I mean, carry on till we get to the door where he waits, obviously, for the come in.
That's pretty much right here. He goes back to the room that he knows he and Joy were in, where the Silurian has just died. And he waits outside until he hears his previous self say, like, come in, and then he opens the door. Yeah.
How does... I know he has said, like, a paradox can't be made in this hotel.
Yeah.
But that's a paradox.
Well, he addresses it, but I guess it's a different paradox, isn't it? Because so he addresses it and he says, like, because he obviously goes in and he gives his younger self the code, and Joy says to him, how did you get the code? And he says something like, yeah, bootstrap, I know. But it's kind of written off as like a throwaway line. I don't think Moffat really has an answer for it. I guess you could argue, like, with all the time gates being linked and it being paradox proof, that's like why he can't take his time machine through the doors.
Yeah.
But Oh, no, Charles just found it for me. Yeah.
Exeter
Hotel, New York. Good God.
I told you. I got an eye.
Good God.
He goes to New York.
That's crazy. How does he get to New York?
We don't need to know. We don't need to know.
Why is there a flyer for a New York hotel? Why would you make such a convoluted detail?
I mean...
Why would Moffat do that? Why wouldn't he just have it be the same door? The door in the original room.
Well, the question is, what the hell happened in the Exeter Hotel in New York this year? dare I ask? What's happened?
It's next year, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is next year.
2025.
I thought we were 2025 now. Yeah, what happens next year? What does Moffat know? Oh, please say Moffat has like secret like plans for a little Doctor Who function, please.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That would be so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, he addresses it and he says like, yeah, I know Bootstrap. It's kind of, this is probably the biggest issue with the episode, I think, in terms of how he gets the code doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's not a Bootstrap paradox. You just made up a code.
Yeah. And thank God it worked.
Yeah.
But he does say something about time is weird.
It would have been a Bootstrap paradox if he somehow found out the code. If he found out the code and then told his younger self, that makes the Bootstrap paradox because he couldn't have got a way to find the code unless his future self came back to give him the code.
Yeah.
That's the Bootstrap. You can't just make up a number and then say, yeah, I know Bootstrap, right? Like, no, that's not how it works.
No. I guess in that sense, it's like the one time he did it, he guessed it was correct. And therefore...
I mean, I thought something was going to happen in the...
in the hotel.
Yeah, in the hotel during that year of, like, living there in normal time that was going to, like, give him a clue as to the code. So, yeah, it's a bit disappointing that there basically is no resolution to that. I feel like that's just Moffat kind of waving his hand and going, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't think about it.
Don't think about it. I think most people wouldn't as well, to be honest.
It is the worst part of the episode. But at the same time, I don't think it takes away from the emotional sort of resonance of everything else. It doesn't make the episode bad all of a sudden. It's just, if I could change anything about the episode, it would be that.
Well, from this point, he then pulls Joy aside and explains basically, like you said, how he knew it. She asks how he found out, and he's like, I basically guessed. I was told by my previous version. I haven't done anything in the year.
Yeah, yeah.
So
it's kind of interesting though, because obviously because he's now become his future self, he tells his younger self, you have to complete the loop to find the code. So it's interesting, the fact that he doesn't. Clearly something happened in that year. Even if it didn't like give him the answer, something changed in his mindset during that year to make him want to tell his younger self to do it again.
maybe he genuinely loved the year so much with Anita. He's like, just do it. He felt he
needed that. Yeah.
He's like, just spend time with Anita, man.
Yeah.
I guess because even though
that's nicer, actually, yeah, he's just like,
even though he's had it himself, if his older version doesn't do it, he's lost it.
Yes.
Kind of thing. He's lost that time.
This is one I noticed when they're walking, that they walk past one of the doors that looks like a hobbit hole.
I know, you literally went, hobbit hole.
Hobbit hole. Yeah,
hobbit door.
There's a round circular door. I think that's very nice. I like that. Yeah, so this is when the Doctor basically says like, oh yes, I've had a long time to think about this. Because Joy says again, like, the star will bloom and the flesh will rise or whatever. He says, oh yes, I've had a long time to think about this. A couple seconds, in fact. And he basically says, inside the case is an atom mixed with a chain reaction that's needed to make a star. But he said it's not really been factored in how long it'll take, because it should take millions of years to do this. As he's explaining this to Joy as she's like walking, and he's following her, and they get into a lift that's going up. And I love this scene, but it's very hard to watch, where he essentially starts berating her, and he starts by judging her for her choice of hotel room.
I think this is very interesting, isn't it? Because he says like a choice of house isn't you. It's a disguise.
Yeah, it's what you present to others, what you want others to think you look like. You hide your true intentions and your personality behind chairs and lamps and plates and whatever else you decorate your home with. But your hotel room,
is what you think you need.
What you think you need in the moment. And he says, your room is the saddest, loneliest hotel room in the world, and at Christmas.
Oh.
And he starts making fun of her name.
Yeah.
He says, when you were born, did your mum look into your squishy face and just think it would be funny? Was she having a laugh? And then Joy starts shouting at him and doesn't outright name it, but basically heavily implies that her mum died during COVID.
Well, this is something I noted, because obviously towards the end of the episode,
yes,
it does tell us a date. And
yes.
It's Christmas 2020.
Yes.
And one thing I noted was that I can imagine come the next couple of days when reviews are written that this would not have gone down with a lot of people. Do you know what I mean? To remind them at Christmas of... Because it's still a thing that's...
It's typical Doctor Who leaning left, isn't it? And criticising Tory government.
But even then, though, do you mean? I think it's still so very fresh for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Do you mean a lot of people who, again, would have lost their loved ones around this time? To be reminded that on Christmas Day? I mean, not that they would forget, but do you mean for it to be, to look for escape and then it confirmed again?
I ultimately think it's handled well.
Yes.
Because it comes up again in a minute, because this is when they go through the other door and they end up, they look like they're in like a shack in like a tree house or something in the middle of a jungle, and the Doctor's still kind of berating her at this point. He says, look, you obeying the rules, you've always got to obey the rules, and this is when she breaks down and she basically starts like screaming at him, and she says that she let her mother down, and she says, my mum died alone at Christmas
because I listened to a load of people.
Because I listened to a bunch of people. I followed the rules. I listened to a bunch of people. My mum died alone while they were off having parties and doing all that stuff. And I think that's why it works, because I do get, for anyone who did lose a loved one over that time, it still can be, a little bit soon. And
I think it is a little too soon.
Maybe it's a bit of a painful reminder on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
But I think it's done with the intention. The character, it's not done for no reason. Do you know what I mean? It's done, the character is so hurt from this and is so like pained by it, where I feel like anyone who is reminded of it will completely identify with Joy, and they will understand, because that whole thing of like, Boris at the time saying, everyone stay at home, it's so important that you self-isolate and all that stuff, while they were off having drinky poos and whatever in Downing Street. Do you know what I mean? She's so like hurt by this, and she essentially breaks down in front of the Doctor. And this is when the Doctor kind of drops this facade and says like, mums, even when they're gone, they never stop saving us. Yeah. And she turns around and notices that the briefcase isn't on her anymore, and it's been dropped and it's on the floor. And he pretty much, he apologizes. He apologizes. He does. He says, I'm sorry, I had to do it to wake her up, to wake you up, sorry. But he says, I know you think that wasn't a good way to save someone's life, but I assure you there's no such thing as a bad way. But he apologizes anyway. But I love that moment, because that goes to show, like, even though he did it with the absolute best intentions, if need be, between that and the way he attacks himself earlier on, 15 can be nasty. Yeah. Which I think is really interesting, because that's not who he is at all. He's not a spiteful Doctor. He's not a mean character. But if need be, that man could have some venom. Do you know what I mean? And I think it just goes to show we're so lucky to have the kind man that we do. Well, this is what I think is quite interesting as well, because I'm assuming you knew that. I think most people would, but as soon as he starts saying the horrible things, I instantly was like, he's trying to snap her out of this. Yes. He's trying to rile her up to detach her from the case. You don't think, oh, he's been a prick. Like, no, you think he's obviously got a plan. He wouldn't do this normally. Yeah. I think not only do you know he wouldn't do something like this, but the fact that the insults seem so... They're so personal. They're personal, but they're also not connected. Yeah. Like, the choice of the hotel room, obeying the rules, letting her mum down, making fun of her name. They're so like unrelated. It's clearly like he's just trying to make her angry or upset. And yeah, I think it's easy to kind of work out what his plan is immediately, but I think it goes to show that manipulative side to the Doctor that we've not really seen since 12. And even then, 12 didn't have it a lot. 12 did towards the beginning of his era, in like Series 8. And before that, it was probably maybe even the 7th Doctor.
I think Eccleston had... you look at Dalek.
Do you think he's manipulative?
Yeah. Can be, yeah. I think a lot of the Doctors do have a manipulative streak in them. Some more than others. I think Jodie's the one who has the least, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think their whole thing, do you mean, they often go for the nice route, but it doesn't always work. So sometimes you've got to be manipulative for the greater good in these cases. Do you mean he's got to be mean to her to save her?
Yeah. To be honest, we watched a moment very similar to this earlier, didn't we? Cause
we did, yes.
You and I watched last Christmas, the Peter Capaldi Christmas special. There's a moment in that where he's trying to remind Clara. He's trying to obviously say like, it's the one with the dream crabs, and he's trying to get her to think of anything else. He says like, I was trying to flood your mind with random emotions. Yeah. And
he says obviously about Danny Pink.
He says like, oh, Danny, he's there flirting with girls of low moral character.
Which is a laughing thing, but again, obviously at this point he doesn't know that Danny Pink has died. But again, it's a similar thing. Do you mean even that in itself is a low blow? Do you mean that's not something you would tell somebody?
No, but again, it's that thing of the Doctor being like, it's not just justifying like the ends justify the means, but it's again maybe that reminder that he is an alien and he doesn't fully appreciate human emotions even when he thinks he does.
Yeah, it's like things like, things like that. Even in this case, with a lot of humans, if you said that, even if you said, "Look, I was trying to snap you out, I was trying to save you," those things being said can't be taken back. Those things would stay with you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think maybe, even though it is for greater good, sometimes maybe he doesn't realise how long those emotions stay. Yeah. But anyway.
But yeah, so obviously Joy's been kind of snapped out of this now. She says thank you to the Doctor. The briefcase is just kind of sat down on its own now. This is when the Doctor goes to investigate and he says, oh, evil always has an HR or something.
Always have a marketing, yeah.
Yeah, and he kind of like opens the case and he sees the unseen villain of the episode is Villengard.
Yeah.
Which were last seen when? It was semi-recently. Boom. He was in Boom. Sorry. They were seen in Boom. Obviously, they were the creators of like the landmine and all that stuff. They were first introduced in a Stephen Moffat episode in The Empty Child. Because they were, I think it was the Villengard factory that Captain Jack got his sonic blaster from. So Villengard's kind of been a through line through Stephen Moffat's kind of tenure. But yeah, this is when they're marketing the briefcase, the star, as a customizable energy source. But the Doctor says, the star's going to burn everything. When you creating a star here on Earth, it's just going to destroy everything. Yeah. And there's like a voice activated like bot coming out of the briefcase that's kind of like answering the questions in like an FAQ kind of way. Yeah. And it basically says that like, oh, Villengard appreciate all the sacrifices made to, create the star and whatever. We also get the reveal here that all the people that were attached to the briefcase and were killed have now become part of the interface. So initially...
Which we saw in Boom as well.
Yes, that's true, yeah. So at this point we do see like the Silurian guy, the manager from the Time Hotel talking, but a little later we see all the other people as well, including Trev. Yeah. But at this point, this is when the Doctor's kind of like monologuing, trying to think things through. The place is shaking. Joy is saying Doctor, and he's not listening. And a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex appears, kind of bites the treehouse shack thing that they're in and swallows the briefcase. CG looks great.
It does. Do you know what? I mean, I'll mention this later on, but I'll bring it up now. So I'll bring it up later on, but you can tell that this is not only a Disney budget, but a Disney equipment, I think, is...
Oh, did you notice the volume?
I noticed the volume, yes.
All right, okay.
I think it's very interesting. Again, the CG in this. You said you look at dinosaurs in previous series. I know we've come a long way, even since. Do you mean since Moffat's era?
Yes.
In Dinosaurs in a Spaceship, even further since Russell's original era, just in technology.
I guess last time we saw a dinosaur, right, would have been Deep Breath.
Yeah, probably, yeah, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. Well, other than...
Unless you count, like, that thing in Thin Ice.
Unless you... well, if you're on about not in the new series, yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, we saw a dinosaur, didn't we, in Space Babies?
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because remember, they go back and Ruby steps on a butterfly?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. The bit that was in the trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely erased that part from my mind.
Come on, Connor. You're supposed to be the big Doctor Who fan here.
Bad, isn't it? I'm not going to lie, though. This series, season 1, I watched The Legend of Ruby Sunday twice because we watched it on air, and then we watched it a second time where we saw it in the cinema with Empire of Death. But other than that, I've only ever seen every episode in that series once.
Yeah, well, same here. So. I mean, technically, I've only seen this episode all the way through once. We did do a rewatch, but on Christmas Day, I was in the middle of having my dinner. So, on my second dinner.
Yeah, I saw it. I watched it with my parents on Christmas Day, and then I watched it again with you today, where you more or less watched it the first time.
Pretty much. But yeah, so...
So at this point, the T-Rex has eaten the briefcase. The shack is now like at like an angle. It's kind of canted, and the Doctor and Joy like sliding towards it, and they scramble back up, go back through the door, back to the Time Hotel.
I thought of something, and I don't think you're gonna like it.
Oh God! Don't do this to me.
You're welcome.
Go on.
So obviously the briefcase latches onto people, and then that's when it takes over. It shows that it's like a golden sheen over the dinosaur's eye, and then it does like the little thing. Yeah. Is it like attached onto its tonsil or something?
The handcuffs.
Yeah.
Onto the uvula.
Yeah, it's just hanging on, just like.
Yeah, it's just swinging around.
Yeah.
Oh God.
You're welcome.
Deeply upsetting. Yeah, so this is when the Doctor's kind of, again, he spends a lot of this episode kind of like monologuing to himself, trying to come up, think things through. And he says, right, so the star's back there in whatever year it is.
It's like 60 million years
65
ago.
65 million.
Or 60 billion, no. Million, yeah.
Yeah. But he says Villengard would have to come back to pick up the case.
Yeah.
Which would be about now.
He said they'd need to contact the last... Well,
yeah, he said they would probably send a telepathic message to the last or the most recent case holder, which should be Joy, unless it did attach to the uvula of the T-Rex, in which case they're trying to contact a fossil. It's quite a cool plan, though, in terms of like knowing that it's going to have to be 65 million years. Obviously, there's no way they're going to be able to have like one host live that long. So the idea that it kind of jumps from host to host just to live long enough to birth this star. It's kind of cool. But yeah, the Doctor theorizes that it should be sending a telepathic message to Joy, but because he got the case to detach from her, he kind of severed the connection. And he says like, "Oh, I'm so stupid," and while he's kind of ranting at himself, his Sonic is buzzing in his pocket.
She goes, "Your zappy thing."
Yeah, she says, "You're buzzing," and he says something like, "Baby, I'm here. I'm like this all the time."
He's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Your thing's buzzing," and he's like, "All of me is buzzing."
Yeah. But she reaches into his pocket, grabs the Sonic, and just puts it on the.
Yeah, and she's like, "Your zappy thing," and he was like, "It's my sonic screwdriver," and he's like, "Zappy thing does make more sense though."
Yeah, does describe it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she puts it down, and then the hologram pops out, and they see Trev.
Oh. Trev.
So this is when he kind of realizes, when he reveals, that he's part of the star. He says, "Mission is going well, but unfortunately, I'm dead."
Yeah.
And the Doctor's like, "Wait, what? Are you dead?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I'm part of the star now." And he reveals he's part of the interface. But this is when we were talking earlier about him having a bit more
like
self-awareness, a bit more control.
Willpower or drive.
This kind of comes to fruition here, where he's the version of the interface that, even though he is part of the interface, he still wants to help Clint Rock.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the Doctor says, I need you to tell me where they're going, where's the briefcase now. Can you do scans for this, that, for rotational mavity? That's what I noticed. I literally wrote down mavity, all caps.
Yeah, I
was like, mavity.
I also wrote down mavity. Again, one of the few things when I watched this on Christmas Day that I actually heard, because again, talking over dinner and stuff, was mavity, and I literally just went.
You really don't like that, do you?
I don't like it.
I hated it in While Blue Yonder because I thought that was such a bad joke. That was like a Marvel tier joke. But then the fact that it became an ongoing gag throughout the series, I'm completely okay with it now. So rotational mavity. Trev says, I told you I wouldn't let you down. And he says, room 48. And the doctor's like, oh, okay.
And he's like, I love you, Trev. Like,
the doctor's
literally.
He's going to have to do a bunch of calculations. But he's just like, no, room 48. And he's like, oh, brilliant. Cheers, Trev.
Yeah, he's like, I love you. Like, actually, truly love you. And he's like, oh, thank you. Oh, Trev.
I love Trev as well.
I also love Trev. Bring back Trev.
Make a Trev Eagle Moss figure, please.
I mean, timey-wimey.
Oh, you haven't seen my new Eagle Moss figure, so.
No.
No, not that one. I'll show you later. I got a face of Bo.
Oh, face of Bo. Oh, by the way, just a little update.
Oh, I already mentioned that.
Oh, you already the little piggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they go to room 48. The Doctor and Joy, that is, and the door there is kind of like a rock. It's like a stone. But they can't get it off to actually open the door. So this is when the Doctor...
It's got like a little pull handle on it, hasn't it?
Yeah, and the Doctor says, I'm good with rope, which is nice, because my immediate thought was Empire of Death.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you pull in Sutekh with the rope. But then I thought, oh, wait, last Christmas special, there was that thing on the Church of Ruby Road, wasn't it, where he says he speaks rope?
Yeah.
Which I completely forgot about, because I only watched that episode once. So yeah, I thought, this Doctor does have a thing with rope.
He does.
So he goes back through the door to Everest.
Yeah, he was like, I remember seeing rope. Where did I see rope?
Yeah, he grabs the rope from Everest, and he leads it through the doors, goes to the Orient Express, and he climbs up to the roof. He's attached one end of this rope to the rock door, and on the Orient Express, he's attached like a hook, like an anchor thing to the other end of the rope, and he kind of spins it like a lasso and throws it down to the tracks.
Yeah.
And obviously the train moving over the tracks puts a lot of tension on the rope and essentially rips this rock off the door.
I wrote in this little scene, I mean, one, I liked when he gets the rope or the equipment, like the grapple hook, maybe?
Yeah.
From Everest. I like that they ask him why he's taking it, and he's like, because it's there.
Yeah.
Fair.
Fair enough, mate.
Fair enough, mate. And also, when the rope snaps, when it finally, like, it pulls the door, or like this, I guess you could say door, or like a boulder out of its place, and then it hits the door of the entrance to the hotel, and then snaps, and then whips through the train and makes the noise. I was like, God, that could have killed so many people. It was like, I was like, oh God.
Yeah. At this point, the case opens up, and Joy sees it open, and she kind of comforts the star.
Yeah.
But it's not as if, because my initial thought watching this was, oh, she's been possessed again because the case is opened. But I think it's way more apparent now, especially the second time, that she hasn't. She was
possessed.
Well, at this point.
Yeah. Because the doctor, I know so, because the doctor says about the case, like, controlling people nearby, and it cuts to her, and her eyes do that shiny orange glow.
Oh, do they?
But I still think, I think she has accepted it.
Yeah, well, I interpreted that as because of her journey, especially having, like, spoken about her mother and everything. It's that thing of, I've accepted that I am kind of a lonely person and I don't really have much going on, but I'm going to give myself up to give birth to this new thing.
But I think that's, even though it technically has not controlled, well, kind of controlled her, I think it's actually genuine when she's like, I'm here. I think she chooses to do it. I don't think she's forced to. I think it's tried to take control of her, but she's accepted it.
She was willing anyway.
Yeah.
So the Doctor rushes back to the door after on his way through, though, when he's going through the Orient Express, and he accidentally steps on the woman's notes that she was writing.
Yeah.
And he says something like, well, you're better off without him, honey. The sentence structure's awful.
Yeah, and she's like, I wrote it.
She's like, I wrote this. Yeah. So he rushes back to Joy, notices she's gone. She's not in the room anymore. She's gone through the door. So the Doctor goes through the door as well, and he ends up in a desert, and he sees her kind of standing on the end of a cliff, glowing.
Yeah, like her chest is glowing.
Yeah, glowing like yellow, like a warm kind of sun.
It looks like she's, when you first see her, it looks like she's pulling something towards her. So I don't know whether she's like
pulling it into herself.
Pulling it into herself at this point.
Yeah. She says she was hoping he'd come back to say goodbye,
which is so sweet. And she's like, she mentions like how lovely he is.
Yeah,
which is so sweet.
She says the starseed is in me now, but it's in all of us. And it she kind of like turns into all of them quick.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, but you're dying. And she said, I'm not dying, I'm changing.
Yeah, she turns into Trev, and Trev gives like the little thumbs up. Yeah, but Joy says, I'm going to save the world by taking the star up into the sky, away from the Earth. No one's going to die. And the Doctor says, you don't know what you're doing, you're going to burn. But she says, no, I'm not going to burn, I'm going to change, and I'm going to turn into something beautiful.
And she says, and you need to change too.
You need to change too.
And she says
she says, that you were right about my room. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, you were right about everything, but you stayed in that room for a year.
And he was like, it was actually quite nice.
Yeah, he says it's actually quite nice. But she says, you need to find a friend. And then she kind of rises up into the air and then shoots off into the sky like a shooting star. And we get this lovely little kind of like montage here of all the time zones that we've seen so far, looking out into the sky, and amongst all the stars you can just see this one star kind of glowing bright. So we see that older couple from Manchester in the 40s, looking out and seeing it. We see the guys up on Everest. We see the woman in the train.
I like the guy in Everest says, oh, do you think the weather's going to be good? And the other guy goes, yes, it's in the stars. Yeah. Because that's like a common phrase used. Yeah, the woman on the train rips up that letter she was writing.
Yeah. Then we see Ruby.
Yeah.
Ruby's kind of looking out the window and she sees the star, and then her phone rings and she picks up the phone. It's her mother. We don't hear her side of the phone call, but she's just talking to her mother on the phone, and she's just looking out at the star and clearly just thinking about the Doctor. And finally we cut to Anita in the hotel, who's kind of tidying up the room, and she picks up the final little TARDIS figure, model, whatever you want to call it, and she looks out at the star, and then the time door opens.
There is one more before that you've missed, which is quite a big one.
Is there?
It's Joy's mum.
Oh yes, of course.
We cut to London 2020, and Joy's mum is in a hospital bed on Christmas Day.
Yes, 2020 Christmas in London, and Joy's mum's in a hospital bed talking to Joy on like an iPad. Looks like they're FaceTiming or something.
Yeah, we see basically what Joy was speaking about earlier, about her mum dying on Christmas Day. It was her last day, and all she was able to do was speak to her. Yeah. And
they basically say goodbye to each other and they sign off. And then her mum looks out the window and she sees the star, and it starts to like glow brighter and brighter. And it's as if, even though it's just a star and she can't see it, it's as if she recognises the star as Joy, and kind of like calls out to her almost. And she kind of turns into that kind of like same
golden
kind of
dust.
golden dust that that like the barman did earlier, and it looks like she kind of flies through the window and goes back
to her.
In the stars.
Well, Joy does say that, like earlier on, she says, you know, I'm finally going to be with my mum.
Yeah,
just like,
but it's funny because again, when you hear that, you always associate that as just a thing of like, oh, we'll meet you again in heaven or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that they become one as this star, and obviously time travel being timey-wimey, obviously Jo thought her mum died alone at Christmas, but she actually went to join her future self.
Yeah,
it's very nice and it's very sweet.
It is. Like I said, back to we have
so Anita's in the hotel, and the woman from the Time Hotel pops through the door and offers her a job. She says, you come highly recommended from a friend, and she gives her a card, and when she opens it up it says for Auld Lang Syne. So the Doctor's clearly put in a good word for Anita.
And well, I don't know where this sits, but we cut back to the Doctor where at the point where Joy had gone off into the sky,
up, and
he says like, of course.
He looks down and says like, of course.
Joy to the world.
And he screams joy to the world, and he goes back through the door, and then our final shot is of
Bethlehem.
The camera kind of pans up, and you can see like a couple camels over to the side. You see a small town, and it says Bethlehem
0001.
0001.
Yeah. Which I think is very sweet.
I think that's the end of the episode. I feel like that thing is going to annoy a lot of people. Tying the star into Jesus. I don't really think it should. I don't know why it would, but I feel like a lot of people are gonna be like, I don't know. I don't know. I just get the impression. I feel like some subjects are so touchy, aren't they? And I feel like as soon as you start bringing up Jesus, or you imply that the shooting star that led the three wise men to Bethlehem being sci-fi, I feel like that's going to wind some people up.
I think. Well, yeah. It is very difficult because
I love it.
I really like it.
And here's the thing: I am not a religious person at all.
No.
I actively I'm not only am I not religious, but I kind of just hate religion as a concept. Nothing against particular religions, but just the whole thing of massing together under one shared belief, and kind of just it doesn't appeal to me at all.
I think Colin's main thing with it is not what people believing. It's generally people not forcing, but people maybe trying to encourage others to believe.
It's not the belief itself. It's that thing then of kind of like, I hope this has never been used in a religious context before, but it's kind of like circle jerking.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Sorry, blasphemy, but still, I think it's needed.
In the sense of like, I don't know. Again, this doesn't single out a single religion because they're all kind of the same, but in the sense of, it's all about right. If you can't just believe what you want to believe, you have to follow our rules that we set, and trying to encourage other people to come and join. Obviously, not everyone are like, say, Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on doors, but it's that thing of, I don't know, there are certain religions that are obviously more strict than others, but sometimes if you don't follow the rules, you can get ostracized from your whole friends and family, and that just, all of that stuff based on your faith just seems crazy to me, and that's what I don't side with religion. The beliefs themselves are irrelevant. It's just kind of the social aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I love the way this ties in to Bethlehem. I think on paper it sounds tacky. Do you know what I mean? If I told you in the last Christmas special, a person becomes a shooting star, and that's the star that leads the three wise men to the baby Jesus, like you'd think that sounds dumb.
Well,
but I think the Murray Gold's music, the entire emotional catharsis of the episode, and just the way it all comes together in the edit, I think is great. I think it's done tastefully. Well,
this is the thing, because I'm not religious, but I was brought up in a religious household, or at least with family members. I went to church.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I'm atheist, but I would say I'm typical me on the fence.
You're a fence sitter, aren't you?
I am a fence sitter. I'd like to believe that there's stuff out there. I'd like to believe there's something after. And I think that's for me, the nicest part of religion. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's hope.
That's the thing. I think anyone, even people who are agnostic or atheist, would like to believe.
Of course
we would. It's just some people are naturally more skeptical than others.
Yeah.
Some people want evidence rather than just accepting stuff. But I think we would all like to believe that there's something else and we can see our loved ones again. Of course we would.
But what I like about this is the fact that it covers everything. It's if you are a more scientific mind, and not that's necessarily the case, that because there's a lot of scientists who do have, you know, religious beliefs.
Yeah.
But it's if you veer more towards that, it's like this star has been created. But then there's also that thing of Jesus and the star guiding people. I think it's a lovely little ending idea.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah, no, I really like it.
It's very sweet.
I think its heart's in the right place, and it actually comes off in execution. Because a lot of time things happen where you can tell the creator or the writer or the director, whoever's heart is in the right place, but it doesn't come across in the edit, and it comes across as cheesy, tacky, insensitive, whatever. I don't think this does. I think this is done really tastefully. The fact that we obviously get the title card of Bethlehem 0001, and you just see kind of a town with a couple camels in the distance.
And as the Doctor says, I mean, he literally brings this up earlier on in the episode about, of course, the inn.
Yeah, of course there was no room at the inn, yeah.
Yeah, but the fact that it's foreshadowing it, but then we have that. Like, this is a historical event.
I think that's the thing, though. I think when he says, of course, I think it's quite easy to assume that means, oh, of course, the star was the shooting star. But I think he's actually referring back to earlier on when he said, oh, no wonder there was no room at the inn. He's like, oh, of course, it was one of the time balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mixture of both. But I like this end. I really like this episode.
Yeah, I do as well. I think it's a lot better than last year's Christmas special.
And one thing that for me, is very important about a Doctor Who Christmas special, which I know it won't be for many people, but is that it's Christmassy.
Yeah,
that it gives you that
earlier,
Christmassy vibe, and this is so cozy.
Some of them just have snow.
Yeah.
I think like the Return of Dr. Mysterio or the Snowmen. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like if it wasn't for the fact that it was snowing, it could be just a normal episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know what you mean. It's quite nice when you actually get one that it doesn't have to be like shoved down your throat and super, jolly old Saint Nick and all that stuff. But yeah, when it actually ties into the holidays somehow and it brings the vibe and the cheer, and it's something you can imagine watching with the family. That's good. And nothing happened in this episode that made me cringe, which is good because I love Doctor Who. It's like my favourite show.
It is your favourite show.
But there is...
It is. There's no... It's like... It most certainly is.
But there's always that thing of, I don't want to watch it with my family because I get secondhand embarrassment sometimes.
Yeah, you're like, let's watch my favourite show.
Like, yeah, let's watch my favourite show. And then...
Something happens, you're like, I'm sorry.
And then In the Forest of the Night comes on and I'm like...
Oh, no, leave In the Forest of the Night.
This show's good, I swear.
No, that's how I would feel about Orphan 55 with Benny. Yeah. It's like, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
But nothing happened in this episode. I watched it with my parents. I think my dad fell asleep for a bit, I'm not going to lie. But
that's a typical parent thing, though. It's Christmas Day, it's after dinner.
Eaten, everyone was full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I think, not that it's particularly poignant to the episode, but, and I know this won't apply to a lot of the listeners because they're not all going to be in Great Britain, but this was aired quite early for Doctor Who.
5:10.
I think that's mainly because what came after it, really.
Yeah, I mean, plenty of other stuff came out after it, obviously, like
Wallace and
Gromit, Gavin and Stacey, all that stuff aired. I think a lot of it as well is they ditched the thing they had with season 1 where it was midnight releases and it was just the same time across the globe.
Yeah.
Where now I think they've ditched that scheme now, so I think being at like 5:10 for us just made it a better time slot for like the States and stuff.
Yeah. But I guess it's that sort of thing as well. With not always the case, but with a lot of other Doctor Who episodes or Christmas episodes, some of it being a bit more darker, a bit more scarier, you could argue, like the Facehuggers of Last Christmas, or whatever they're called.
The Dream Crabs.
The Dream Crabs, sorry.
Yeah.
I think that could be quite scary for a child.
I guess.
But this, I think, because it's so... And I think that's what they're trying to aim towards.
You think they're going more family-friendly?
I think they're trying to bring kids, like parents, to think... you know, I'd be more than happy for my kid to watch this. There's nothing too scary in this that would, you know, put people off.
I think they tried to do that with Jodie and Chibnall's era.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think the problem with that is a lot of it came down as because they were aiming for I think this is aiming for a family audience, where Jodie's era was aiming more for children specifically, which is why a lot of the humour...
I don't necessarily...
A lot of the humour is not great, and a lot of the exposition feels like you're being talked down to, but I think the fact that then you have episodes like Rosa and episodes like Can You Hear Me and It Takes You Away feel oddly mature.
Well,
conveniently, though, episodes not written by Chris Chibnall.
Well, you say that, but I think in general, the whole of Jodie's era is quite, not dark, but I wouldn't, if we had kids, like, I wouldn't be that comfortable with them watching some of Jodie's era, or a lot of Jodie's era, but with quite a bit of Ncuti's era, I feel like I kind of would. I think the overall...
Okay, children, this one's called 73 Yards.
Well, not that one.
This one's called Dot and Bubble. Get ready to learn about racial prejudice.
See, that's where it gets you, because you're like, oh, it's so bubblegum and happy, and then it's
pastel
like...
colours, it's about being too into tech.
Here, it literally Calimars your heart. It's just like, here it is.
Yeah.
You will think about this for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
I know I said earlier, just to change the subject completely.
That's fine.
I know I said earlier that I wanted to bring up Mr. Ben again. Mm-hmm. And the reason I want to bring it up is in the credits, Anita's last name is Ben.
Oh.
She's credited as Anita Ben, so I guess that leans into the fact that Anita goes to work at the Time Hotel and then eventually founds the costume shop.
Do you know what? I was wondering this. Again, it might just be just a one and done, but because she's in the Time Hotel now and she works there, we could see her again.
I'd love to see her again.
I would love to see her again. And please,
maybe not like as a full-on companion.
No, but like,
I mean, she should be good as a companion, but I think I'm not expecting, nor would I want her to be like a full-time companion. But if she was like, like what Captain Jack was in Russell's first
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, just like showing up maybe once a season, once every 2 seasons, just to show and be a familiar face.
Do you know what I would like to say? Because I'm assuming it hasn't been written, but please, anyone out there who knows anyone, have her come back for next Christmas. Because think about it, she works in the hotel. I know it can be at any point.
I'm pretty sure it has been written, because I'm pretty sure Russell's working on series 3.
It doesn't surprise me, but it's one of those things. It'd be quite sweet to have them go to a Christmas day somewhere else, and her just by chance show up.
Yeah.
I think that would be nice. Again, like I said, for one little romp, maybe to go along with the Doctor.
That's me. I liked all the side characters in this one.
Me too.
Between Joy, Trev, and Anita, I think all 3 of them were really good. Yeah, well done, Moffat. Hats off. You pulled it off. You've made like 3 good Christmas specials now.
Oh, leave him alone. I love his Christmas specials.
But yes, general kind of episode roundup, very briefly, what do you think? I
really enjoyed it. And I think if you look at, for me, other episodes, like Christmas episodes, I mean, I am a Moffat fan. There's no hiding that.
Yeah.
I love watching his Christmas specials, all of them. So, other than Dr. Mysterio, but then I'm warming up to a bit. I think it would definitely be on that kind of thing of like next year or the year after.
Go watch this at Christmas?
I'd put it on at Christmas. Yeah. I would look forward to watching it with the catalogue of Christmas episodes. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I do too. I think it's really good. I think it was good Christmas viewing. I think it's going to hold up in the long term, I think. Maybe the COVID reference might date it a little bit, like 10, 20 years down the line, or maybe it could age better. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say.
Well, I think personally, if it will age better. That's my one thing with this, that I don't know again,
The one thing you would change is the COVID reference. The one thing I would change is how he finds the code.
Yeah, very different. I don't know. I again, very fortunately, didn't lose anybody during that period of time. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how I would feel if I had sitting down on Christmas Day and watching that. I think it would have hit too hard for me and would have been too soon, because a lot of people still suffer with COVID. A lot of people, people died in COVID. I guess
at the same time, it was like 3 years ago. I know it's not like, it's not like it's 20 years ago, but it's not as if it was like 6 months ago. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know this. I mean, people still die of COVID, but I know it's not like the lockdown.
I know, but
situation. But
like I said, I think it was handled tastefully, and I think that it's good representation, because you run that risk at any time, don't you? Like you could argue like Rosa might have made some people uncomfortable, for obvious reasons, but it's that thing of ultimately I think its heart was in the right place and it was handled well.
I know, but for me, again, I think it's something. Again, I know Doctor Who generally goes out. It's known for going out there and covering things that often people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
And in many cases, things that should be spoken about. But I think it doesn't hit quite right for me, because it was Christmas. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, maybe.
I think maybe that might have upset a lot of people.
That's fair.
But other than that, I've got 2 other little mentions. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I guess we mentioned earlier the volume.
Yes.
Bethlehem scene.
Mm-hmm.
I did the little Leonardo DiCaprio.
The little Once Upon a Time in Hollywood point.
Yeah, I wasn't looking out for it, but
did you notice it?
I noticed it, yeah.
Oh, did you?
But then
I didn't notice it.
I am a very big Disney nerd. I know a lot about Disney, and I've watched many, many documentaries about the use of the volume.
Yeah.
If they didn't use the volume, I'd be very surprised. I think I know they have mentioned that they were using the volume in Doctor Who, but I didn't know. Again, I can't confirm. I didn't work on this.
What gave it away?
So, the scene where the Doctor's looking at Joy and he's crying and he's saying that you're going to die. You can just a little bit tell with the background and the shading a little bit.
Right.
I think that's what kind of gave me that vibe.
I wasn't sure if it would have been to do with the picture, like the shading and stuff, or whether it would have been like, because the volume is curved. I wasn't sure if you could be like, I could see the curve.
Well, it's very difficult to tell, and generally because it's a night sky. Yeah. But I think
imperfections would be hidden a bit in the dark as well. I imagine.
But I think it's. Again, I can't confirm this. I don't know, but I would have a very good hunch that the volume was used here. Just again, seeing it used in the past, mainly on like The Mandalorian and stuff like that. The way they disguised the screen as well by using rocks.
Oh, right, okay.
So there was a rock behind him and it's kind of like slightly lit differently.
That's interesting. Okay.
So, yeah, because it's not completely
I didn't even consider
curved.
that, but yeah, I guess you'd have to like hide the borders of the screen, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because it's where it meets the floor. Yeah. So they generally cover the floor with some sort of dirt or sand or whatever.
That's a good point.
They cover the borders, or in many cases like Disney, they spend a lot of time touching it up.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, it's interesting.
But
do you have anything else to bring up regarding Joy to the World?
One other thing, again, not that it particularly matters, but I just thought it was interesting. Mm-hmm. So again, I did my research into the places in the hotel.
From the cold open, you mean?
From the cold opener.
Yeah.
And just because I wanted to find out more information.
Yeah.
And the Queen's Hotel in Manchester, mm-hmm. I had a look on their website, and they have like I think it was their website or like the History of Manchester website, and they have a really old photo of the room that the man and woman were in.
Okay.
And it's like bang on.
Oh, really?
Honestly, bang on. I'm assuming that was their reference.
Right.
I'll see if I can get it up. Honestly, like, I think the curtains are, like, exactly the same and everything. So I was like, oh, no. So I thought that was quite interesting that they've...
Yeah, it's cool.
That,
It's
again,
nice
I've
when-
never been to this hotel. I don't even know. I'm assuming it's still standing.
No, it's always nice when, like, makeup, hairstyling, props department, set design, whatever, when they pay those, like, attention to details and get things really right,
Yeah.
especially in terms of, like, historical accuracy.
I love it. I love it so much. But yeah, what about you? What did you think? And what, have you got anything else to add on to?
I don't have anything else to add. I would just say, like I say, I think it was a really strong Christmas episode. I think it was a really strong episode overall. I'm very impressed with the character work that Stephen Moffat was able to put in, not just for those side characters I mentioned, but for the Doctor himself. I feel like he had... Charles, to show me the picture.
Literally, and look where the butler's coming out of.
Yeah, he's coming out of the door.
It's the door.
Yeah. I think the Doctor had a nice amount of... maybe not... I guess it was growth.
It's like character development, isn't it?
a bit of development and a bit of introspection in an episode that, in all honesty, wasn't really about him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well done, Stephen. You did a good job.
Yeah.
I know you're not confirmed to be coming back, but would love to see you come back
I
and
honestly
do something
would
else.
love to as well. I'd love to. I hope this isn't the end, because I love him as a writer. I think he's my favourite writer, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it was a really nice, cosy Christmas episode,
Yeah.
I think.
Cool.
But yeah.
Nothing else?
Well, no, the only other thing really would be the trailer for...
Yeah, we got a kind of teaser trailer for season 2 or series 15, whatever you prefer. Looks good. I don't have much to say. It was a very short teaser.
I'm very interested in the scene in the cinema, which looks like probably around the 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
And the Cuphead looking character coming out of the screen.
Like a black and white cartoon character, like seemingly coming out of the screen. Yeah.
I'm interested in that. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah, me too. But
and we had a little first glimpse of our first...
Do you just mix up glimpse and glance?
Yes, I did. Glamps. We had our first
Don't look at my glamps.
We had our first glimpse of the new companion.
Yeah, what's her name? Farida Sethu, I think. She was obviously in Boom as a different character, I believe.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it's her cousin.
No.
But
that would be very Russell.
It would.
That would be very Russell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
I think the only other thing I would like to say is let us know how you feel about this. Obviously, we've covered... we're going through Doctor Who from the revival onwards.
Yes.
But once the new season airs, whether you'd be interested in us covering it when it comes out, or whether you'd just like us to get there eventually.
Yeah, should we leave it? And then by the time we get there, which granted will be a long time away, but we would have had a bit more time to sit with it.
Yeah.
Or should we cover it live and then get our initial thoughts, and then maybe in future, if need be, we could cover it again.
Yeah.
See if our thoughts have changed, or we could just leave it. My only thing is, obviously, this one's not too bad as a one-off for Christmas, but when that series comes out, whenever it is, say it's April, May time, because those episodes are going to air weekly, we're either going to have to put whatever series we're currently on hiatus while we're doing that, or we're going to have to upload more than once weekly.
We'll see. We'll see your time frame. See if we can get a little behind the scenes.
Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you'd like. Because if you're happy for us to, say we're on season 2 or 3, whatever we're on then, say if you're happy for us to put that on hold and focus on the new series and then go back after it's finished, we can do that. Or if you'd rather hold off on the new series and just carry on with Russell's first era and just get here when we get here, then we can do that. So let us know what you think, and we'll discuss off air as well and kind of see what we want to do. But interested to hear your thoughts regardless.
Yeah, and interested to hear your thoughts on the episode.
Yeah, let us know what you thought of Joy to the World. Because I can imagine but certain elements being divisive. So I'm very curious.
Yeah, and just things you may have noticed that we haven't, any other facts. Honestly, I'd love to learn.
Yeah.
So if you could, any knowledge you have, please let me know.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to drop a like down below if you enjoyed this. We really appreciate it.
Leave a nice comment for Connor telling him how great he is.
Leave a lovely comment for Charlotte because she loves not reading them and having me read them to her.
Having him send them to me.
You can subscribe to keep up with all of our latest stuff.
Yeah, we'll be uploading pretty much once a week on a Friday.
On a Friday, 5 o'clock. I mentioned last episode that the podcast is now available on Spotify, so you can check it out there if that's more convenient. It's now also available on Apple Podcasts, so whichever is your podcast streamer of choice, or you can just keep checking it out on YouTube.
Yeah, and if you like this in future, next week join us for episode 7.
Correct. We're going to be covering the long game.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we'll be doing next week. But until then, I guess stay safe.
Have a happy new year.
Have a happy new year. Stay away from
suitcases or briefcases.
Sentient briefcases.
Yeah, stay away from briefcases.
Yeah.
And try open the doors in hotels. Actually, don't do that. Please don't.
Don't get in trouble.
Don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
Stay away from the doors.
Yeah. But thank you all for watching.
Thank you. See you next week.
Goodbye.